It certainly didn't take long for us to see our first top 10 upset of the 2021 college football season. Unless you wear powder blue, you probably enjoyed the game. Upsets are fun, folks. Welcome to the Voice of College Football here late night on a Friday night, but we're not going to go quite as late as we did last night or the night before, really much the night before. 24 consecutive hours here at the Voice of College Football. Let's call it about 1 or 2 this time. As we lead into Saturday, we want to be nice and fresh and pumped for Saturday and all the huge games, but we had some interesting results from the past couple nights and wanted to discuss with all of you. Welcome to the Voice of College Football, and let's run down the scoreboard. Michigan State Northwestern playing quite a long game at this point. There's about 5 minutes left, and Michigan State winning at Northwestern 31-14. It looks like Sparty's going to defeat the Wildcats for a second consecutive season, this time as a 3.5-point underdog on the road. Once again, Michigan State and Mel Tucker get off to a big start here in 2021 with a fairly significant win against Hunter Johnson and Northwestern. Out west, Colorado has defeated Northern Colorado. The Buffs win it 35-7 under Carl Doral. The schedule gets mighty tougher, though, for the Buffs, coming up with Texas A&M coming to Denver next weekend, followed by a team that we saw last night, the Minnesota Golden Gophers. So Colorado with 2 high-profile games coming up the next 2 weeks against Texas A&M and against Minnesota. But they, with facing Dylan McCaffrey at quarterback for Northern Colorado, he did little there, 35-7. South Dakota State and Colorado State are still on the field. South Dakota State leads comfortably there, 35-16 with about 12 minutes left. And, of course, our game of the night, the one that really is significant to the ACC Coastal Division. Virginia Tech takes a monumental step toward contention in that division. I know it's only Labor Day weekend. I know it's only one game, but they have defeated what is considered to be the best team in the division. That's why all our considerations and projections and predictions during the offseason ultimately mean nothing, because they have to go out there and prove it. And what was proven tonight is that Sam Howell has, at this point, not that it's not going to change, but at this point, Sam Howell, although he didn't look spectacular by any stretch, anyone who is blaming this loss on Sam Howell is a moron, or did not watch the game, and therefore is a moron of another ilk, because you don't make judgments on games you didn't watch. Sam Howell didn't play great. There's no question about that. But my goodness, his receivers let him down. His receivers failed to make plays. They dropped passes. They were not open. The running game was stagnated by Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech, the Hokies were all over the field. Now, are the Hokies this good on defense? I don't know. I know that we provided you some of the best pregame and postgame analysis that you can imagine. So I hope you caught it before and after Virginia Tech, North Carolina, and we're going to be blessed with Virginia Tech analysis, pregame and postgame like that here on the main channel every week with Paul Van Wagner, Mike McDaniel, and the rest of the crew. They picked Virginia Tech to win this game. They told me that the Virginia Tech, the defense of the Hokies was up to the task. This is a North Carolina team that put up 600 yards and 56 points on the scoreboard against the Hokies last season. But, of course, many of those playmakers are in the NFL right now at wide receiver and at running back, because Sam Howell's back and because the offensive line is back for North Carolina. But Sam Howell was pressured all night. And again, his receivers did not make plays. He was pressing and made a couple bad decisions. But it was apparent that Virginia Tech would own the night, even though despite dominating the game and controlling the game, Howell and Carolina still had a chance to win it late as they drove inside red zone territory, I believe at the 32-yard line, so close to the red zone, And then he was hurried into an interception. And again, no protection, and sprinted right and couldn't find anyone, and just saw a receiver on the right sideline and winged it over there inadvertently. I believe it was third down. So had that been fourth down, then that is the smart play. You've got to do something. I believe it was third down, though. So they could have waited for another play, of course. So Sam Howell, I will have to double check on that. I don't want to be critical of the young man. If it was fourth down, that is the play to make. You have to throw the ball in desperation. But if it was third down, then that's not the play to make. But North Carolina, despite their problems, despite playing horribly on both sides of the ball in the first half, playing better on defense in the second half, and Virginia Tech got conservative. There's no question about that. So Justin Fuente, I understand he managed the game, and in the end, it worked out. I don't know that he almost managed himself into a defeat, though, after his team completely outplayed North Carolina most of the night. So that is a cautionary tale for Justin Fuente and Virginia Tech, that you can be too conservative. Burmeister played well. Again, he made plays in the first half, and they clamped down in the second half. North Carolina played better on defense, but Virginia Tech made the plays in the end with 3 interceptions on Sam Howell against a North Carolina team that scored 56, 600 yards last season. Very significant in the Coastal Division as a top 10 team goes down. And of course, the rankings mean nothing. It's more about the standings. And Virginia Tech right now, wait for the top 25 that actually makes sense. We'll see where the Hokies place. So going into this game, of course, North Carolina was ranked 10th. Virginia Tech was unranked. Where do we think that the coaches poll and the AP poll will rank North Carolina versus Virginia Tech? That's going to be interesting, because it's obviously not even close right now where they should be ranked. The Hokies should be ranked well ahead of North Carolina if you just base it on the performance. If you just base it on the track record and what they're actually showing us on the field instead of perception. Duke loses in the last minute to Charlotte. That's an embarrassing loss. That shouldn't happen. So Duke is really that bad. Duke was awful last year, and they beat Charlotte by something like 34 points. I think it was 53-19, 32 points, something like that. They lost to Charlotte, a team that they beat by 30-some points last year, and Duke was awful. They're that much worse possibly this year, losing 31-28 to Charlotte. Old Dominion and Wake Forest, the Demon Deacons take care of business 42-10. Eastern Michigan over St. Francis 35-15, and Kansas has met its over-under number. Kansas wins 17-14 over South Dakota. Now we'll just have to wait and see. So if you took Kansas over 1, you're good to go. You've made your money back. You've got 11 games now for Kansas to possibly beat somebody, maybe. Again, a struggle against South Dakota, 17-14. We got the phone lines open. I'll post it here in just a second at 860-499-3332. First, I will remind everyone that you can contribute to the Voice of College Football at Venmo, PayPal, and Cash App. And also keep in mind that my predictions are available, and I did split today. I am 3-2 against the spread this season. 3-2 against the spread this season. So last week I took Illinois in the points, got that right, but I took Hawaii in the points, got that wrong. 1-1 last week, and then Northwestern let me down tonight after I got the Ohio State game correct. And also, I took Virginia Tech in the points. So we're at 3-2, 60%. It's early. We'll take 60% all season, though. It's like Tommy Lasorda used to say about every week in baseball. We play 7 games. Let's go 4-3. Let's go 4-3. I will get to your comments in the chat. The number is down on the ticker below, 860-499-3332. We've got a call coming in, I believe, from the Buckeye State. Welcome to the Voice of College Football. Who's on the line?
Hello, it's me, Roberto.
Roberto, what's going on, man?
Well, I'm just watching the Northwestern game.
Northwestern desperately trying to get back in the game. They're at 31-21. They just got a touchdown pass. Touchdown. So
yeah, I saw it right now.
It's desperate. There's probably, about 3 minutes left, down 10.
Yeah.
2:27, down 10. Their field goal kicker missed 2 makeable kicks, pretty easy kicks. Kubander missed 2 kicks. So it should be 31-27. It's not. So what do you got going on tonight, Roberto?
Well, chaos, almost.
What is it, chaos?
Kansas.
Did you say chaos?
Yeah.
Chaos?
Yes.
Where?
I don't know.
Tomorrow? Chaos?
Yeah. Oh, like UNC upset by Virginia Tech.
Yeah, so
Uncle Lou already posted a "Your season is over" video already.
Who did?
It's not even Uncle Lou already got a "Your season is over" video for. It's not even Saturday now.
Yeah, their season's not over. Their season's not over. We'll have to get Uncle Lou on, and I'll let him know the season's not over. Now, if they lose more games, the season's over. But for right now, the season's not over.
They're playing Notre Dame. I don't know.
Yeah, Notre Dame's not necessarily for North Carolina. The playoff is not necessarily the goal. Maybe it is their goal, but I don't think it's necessarily a paramount goal at this point. They need to get to. This was a big loss. I'm not discounting that. They lost the division game. This is one of the most important games in their season, aside from Miami, is to play the games in the Coastal Division, and we may see Virginia Tech contend in that division. So this is a key loss for North Carolina. The season's not over, though.
I don't know what happened to Sam Howell. He did not look so bright at all.
Well, Sam Howell, again, we pin this way too much on the quarterbacks. I'm not saying that Sam Howell played well, but he was the least of the problem. He was the least of the problem. He was running for his life. His receivers were awful tonight. His running game was non-existent. He was the least of the problem.
I don't remember. I'm not seeing what happened on the third. I mean, well,
I'm not saying he played well. I'm not saying he played well, but he was running for his life constantly.
Yeah, I heard they got 6 sacks.
Oh,
my goodness.
Even more so than the sacks. Yeah, the 6 sacks and probably pressured him another 15 times. Yeah. Yeah. Sam Howell's not an issue.
What are you doing in the recruiting area?
And that's a North Carolina team that brought back its entire offensive line.
I mean, like, what is that? 2015 Penn State versus Temple? I don't remember that. It was the game that had like 10 sacks.
That's a good call. Christian Hackenberg. Yes, 2015. Upset loss. That's when James Franklin was on the hot seat.
Oh, my. And I thought Kansas State, I mean, the Duke upset is another one. I wasn't able to watch it because what I assumed was going to be the revival of 2013 Michigan State football. But they started off hot, going up 21-0. The running game looked like back to the powerhouse. Oh, they're going to get a big play here. Hold on. Sorry, good yardage. Sorry, I was watching the game. So it looked like they're dominating on the ground game. Got some good quarterback scrambling from there, and as well as some receivers. Michigan State has an offense now.
All right, Roberto. What else? What are you looking for tomorrow?
Big matchup. Let's see. Maybe the Georgia and Clemson, of course. That's the first. I think. Let's see how Bijan Robinson. I don't know who the new quarterback is. I think Thompson is the last name. I don't know. See the new Texas team.
Thompson is not going to be the starting quarterback. He's going to play a little bit, but Hudson Card is the starting quarterback for Texas.
Okay. I guess I didn't catch track on any news from the Longhorns.
That just came out a couple days ago.
Okay, well, as long as what matters is Bijan Robinson starting. Or is he?
Yes, he's playing.
Good. They better get 20 carries, at least. Because if he wasn't going to Ohio State, I was hoping he goes to Texas. Let's hope they don't waste his. Oh no. Let's hope they don't waste his career there. He's going to be very special.
I don't think he wasted his career. It depends on what the goal is. Maybe if his goal was to win championships, he might have wasted his career, but I think he's going to prepare himself for the next level.
Mm-hmm. Well, so what happened in the Duke-Charlotte game? Because, again, I missed it. It was like a lot of fourth quarter scores and big plays.
When I get off here, I might actually watch the last couple minutes of that game. I DVR'd it. Duke scored. Duke gave up a touchdown with about $1:30 left, and then came back, and their running back went like 75 yards for a touchdown, and they were up with a minute left. But apparently they couldn't hold Charlotte down in the last minute. Duke was awful last season, as we all know. They went 2-8. One of their 2 wins was against Charlotte. They beat Charlotte. They scored 53 points and beat Charlotte. So unless Charlotte's improved dramatically, which I doubt, Duke is just that much worse possibly this year.
Really?
It looks like it. It's based on one game. All right, Roberto.
Well,
anything else, man?
Well, then I guess what's Duke's non-conference schedule? I got nothing.
I know that Duke plays Northwestern, I believe.
I think that could be a win. I haven't seen this game. I think that's going to be a win for them. Or, I mean, Northwestern offense looks not great.
Oh, I will take Northwestern over Duke.
I think with the improvement of Hunter Johnson, maybe. But I mean, the
I
run
thought
game.
He played pretty well tonight. I thought Hunter Johnson played pretty well. I thought he looked fine. Again, offensive line, bad. No playmakers, bad. Nobody that scares the defense on Northwestern.
I mean,
and that's every year.
They didn't get their running back till like the start of the second half, or at least they didn't find out who's going to be their starting running back till the second half. I don't know how many yards he got, but like the first 4 carries, he looked very good in the second half. I don't know. But yeah, I think Duke has a chance with Northwestern's run D not looking great against Michigan State.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know if Charlotte's that good of a run defense either, but it's a pretty good. It could be a close game for them. All right, that'll be it for me.
All right, Roberto. I appreciate the call. You have a good night. Enjoy the games tomorrow.
All right, thank you.
Oh, I love this comment. This guy delivers some of the most absurd comments you're ever going to see. Why isn't he live? Right here. instead of 24 hours straight when football wasn't on. Certainly, I received horrible feedback. People were so critical and so upset about me going 24 consecutive hours of live streaming. That was just a monumental failure on my part because people hated that. Not used to Xer. You're right. It was just a complete failure. We just had a major upset. Sure. And he's not even live after. We had live post game. We hit live post game after the North Carolina Virginia Tech game. Poor planning. Yes. Not used to Xer. We need you to come in here and plan this channel for me. With your vast knowledge and experience, I'm sure with your track record in the industry of media, I'm sure that you could do a much better job than me. That goes without saying. That goes without saying. So you could come in here and plan the channel, or we could check out your channel. We could do it that way. All right. That's just a bit amusing. Mr. HD, looking for Luke Walker. Luke Walker. Luke, where are you? Luke. Sam Howell making a great case for the Heisman with his 3 interceptions. Again, not his fault. He didn't play great, but he is certainly the least of their issues right now. They showed us no explosion at running back. They showed us no consistency or playmaking ability at wide receiver. The offensive line could not run block or, most notably, pass block. We'll see about the defense, because the defense you would think would be better this year, even though they lost Chance Surratt, their best defensive player. They bring back all 10 other starters on defense and some exceptional recruits on defense, led by Jeremiah Gamel. The reason that I'm going to hold judgment on the defense is that the defense, the point statistics did not look bad against the defense, just giving up 17 points. But Virginia Tech pretty much shut it down in the second half. So the defense got ripped in the first half. Clint Eastwood wants me to rip UNC. Horrible offensive line play, horrible running back play, horrible playmaking plays on the outside, dropping passes. The tight end dropped a few passes. The wide receivers didn't necessarily drop passes, like obvious drops. They didn't make plays on the ball. They didn't get separation. They didn't make plays on the ball. They didn't get open the zillion times that Sam Howell had to scramble outside. And again, I would say issues with North Carolina based on this one game. Number one issue by far, pass blocking. Number two issue, wide receivers not making plays on the football and not getting open. Play number three would be, I had some concern about the running game in that they lost 2 complete monsters at running back, and they are replacing them with 3 stars. Now, there are 3 stars out there, Breece Hall being one, of course, who come through to be great players. So it happens, but not generally. Welcome to the Voice of College Football. Who's on the line?
Hey, man, this is Eric.
Hey, Eric. What's going on?
Not much. How are you?
I'm good.
Great. So I just wanted to, thank God we're back in football season. Nebraska got upset, and today, obviously, UNC got upset, and there are a couple other games. I mean, Minnesota showed up against Ohio State, though they didn't get the win. What upsets are you liking tomorrow? Not from a betting standpoint, but what do you think has a real shot of happening? Is it UCLA over LSU? Is it San Jose over USC? Is it something else? Miami over Alabama?
Well, I always like to know what kind of conversation I'm getting into. So I love to define the conversation. So let me ask you this. What do you consider an upset? Just anything where the point spread says it's an upset? If somebody's a 1-point favorite or a 2-point favorite, is that an upset?
I mean, I think most reasonable fans would say no, that we'd call it a coin flip, right? Let's say, I mean, what do you think? 10 points?
Oh, 10. So basically
the
LSU UCLA game would not be an upset then.
I suppose not, but
I'm not
guess
arguing with you. I'm just setting the standard. I'm not arguing in any such way. I'm just curious as to what you would consider an upset, because most people would consider the Virginia Tech game to be an upset. They were only a 5.5-point underdog.
Yeah.
So anyway, I would say about a field goal. I would say something, and of course, if somebody's a 3 or 3.5-point underdog, they're not that's not a huge upset by any stretch.
No,
but people will say that Georgia upset Clemson if that takes place tomorrow night. Some people will say that they're a 3.5-point underdog in that game. Okay, so if I had to guess, yep.
Mm-hmm. I was just going to mention that there may be a discrepancy in point spreads versus perception, because I know UCLA or LSU's picked, I don't know, by 3 or something, but it would be a massive, and you said 3 was about your threshold, but that would be massive for both teams if UCLA beat LSU. So in my mind, it's not that much in the same way that you said Georgia beating Clemson would be an upset.
Totally get you. That totally makes sense. UCLA has been down for years. LSU's loaded with talent. They play in the SEC. We expect the best conference in America to show up versus the worst conference most likely in America. And again, UCLA has been down for so long that from a perception standpoint, this could be a major lift for UCLA to pull off that upset. Yeah. This Virginia Tech upset is, I think, even bigger than the point spread, because North Carolina has received so much attention and hype as a top 10 team, and they could possibly be one of those teams that outside of the Big Five could break into the playoffs and all of that. Sam Howell for the Heisman, and they've just been a program that's been on the rise, and Virginia Tech's been messing around as a 500 team for the past 3 seasons, and they pull off the upset. Mm-hmm. So yeah, there's I really like what you had to say about the context of the game. Absolutely.
Yeah. I think maybe that's a more interesting question than which game specifically, because there's this recency bias. You see it with UNC. And yeah, the same thing. LSU, UCLA. Even I'm going to be at this game, but Fresno looks pretty impressive, albeit against UConn. They could give the Ducks a game. I hope they do. But yeah, just what do you see in your crystal ball that has the potential to happen tomorrow? Just not numbers, but just how are you feeling intuition-wise?
Yeah. Well, when you first posed that question, I thought you were taking it more from a betting angle, and I was going to roll out my pat line to set up that kind of conversation.
No, I'm broke as shit.
Is that and it's holding true already this week that it's almost like clockwork that 20 to 25% of the games in the top 25 will be upsets. So we already got one out of 2 games thus far in the top 25. Can't think of any other top 25 games. Ohio State, Minnesota, and I guess just this other game with North Carolina and Virginia Tech so far. So anyway, I could see Florida State pulling an upset against Notre Dame. I'm not going to predict that to happen, but I could see that happening. I don't really know how to gauge Penn State and Wisconsin as an upset. Wisconsin's a pretty substantial favorite at 5.5, the same line as the Virginia Tech North Carolina game. But
someone just commented. I'm seeing. I was looking at this game before I called in, trying to have things to say. But Texas and the Raging Cajun.
Sure,
I would consider that an upset. if Texas goes down. Just again, this perception thing. People have high expectations always for Texas, but with Sark and Bijan Robinson, like there's just this elevated expectation. And like you said, with Florida State, mean, I'm a lot younger than you, but I come from a time where Florida State is a national contender, and they've kind of fallen to irrelevancy recently. But I have complete faith that they can pull off upsets against top 25 teams. I would not be at all surprised by that.
Yeah, so the Texas Louisiana game I think is fascinating because you almost have complete opposite ends of the spectrum when it comes to college football strata, college football meritocracy. You have Texas, who has underachieved mightily for 10 years now, that has all the money, all the facilities, the brand name, the image, the tradition, the prestige, everything, the recruiting, and Texas football versus Louisiana, who is going to play in front of 15 or 20,000 people per week. I'm sure none of the facilities match in any such way. None of it. They're on the other end of the spectrum coming out of the Sun Belt Conference. But Texas, new head coach, new offensive and defensive coordinators, which means new systems on both sides of the ball. Freshman quarterback who's never played. Situation where new terminology, new culture, new everything, having to acclimate to everything with a new coaching staff versus the team that is statistically bringing back the most productivity on offense and defense. So a very experienced team that I don't think is going to be phased by going to Texas and playing.
Yeah, I think that's totally fair. I mean, Texas has underachieved consistently, and this team is on the up and up. There's been talk of, maybe some comparisons with 2007 with all of the movement we see going around. Do you feel like, we've had a very short amount. You probably answer this question better after tomorrow's games, but do you feel like what you've seen so far, do you think we're on that trajectory, at least week 1 of 12-13?
You're talking about in terms of chaos.
Yes.
Well, we haven't seen any chaos yet. So I don't know that we're on a trajectory.
You don't think UNC losing was UNC losing chaos or what?
Not to me.
No.
They were a 5-point favorite. They were playing on the road. Virginia Tech. That didn't surprise me at all. I picked North Carolina to win the game. I took Virginia Tech in the points.
Mm-hmm.
So that did not surprise me. I know a lot of people picked Virginia Tech. I'm sorry, what was that?
Do you think the Sam Howell crowd, do you think it's devastating and surprising to them?
Oh, I think there's a lot of people that got to be very upset right now because they marked that down as a win and they scored 10 points. They were completely dominated by the Virginia Tech defense, which, unless they show us differently this year, has been a marginal defense the last few years. So they didn't play Georgia, Clemson, Alabama defensively, Texas A&M, somebody like that, and they were just mauled. He was running for his life the whole game. He was harassed the whole game. They looked bad. They had a chance to tie the game near the end, and that would have been one of those games if they could have pulled that out, where the team that dominated or controlled the game most of the way just let them off the hook. But I think there are a lot of people out there that are very surprised at that result, and that really threw them for a loop, because I think after that top 5 teams in the nation that we all know, that Iowa State and North Carolina were those next 2 that people were looking at as breaking into the top 5 possibly.
Okay. 2 more small things. I'll let someone else get on the line. One, and actually this is kind of a genuine question. I'm not totally familiar with the ACC division. Can UNC still get to the ACC championship?
Oh, yeah. They've only played one game. They just lost one game.
Well, I know. I just knew it was a loss to a Virginia Tech team. So I guess if Virginia Tech drops the ball, then that's it. And that was kind of my follow-up question. Does Virginia Tech finish ranked, or is this a fluke?
Oh, do they finish the season ranked? That's a great question, because I picked Virginia Tech to go 6-6, which is obviously not a ranked season. So they're going to have to go 8-4 with a bowl win to finish ranked based on how they played tonight. But I don't want to go too far off of this game. 4 seasons ago in 2017 on Labor Day weekend, Virginia Tech went to Florida State, which was coming off an Orange Bowl win, and they won 24-3, and everybody was going crazy about their great defense and whatever, and they went 6-7. So we'll pump the brakes a little bit. It's a big win for Virginia Tech. It's a big division win. And you're right. If Virginia Tech only loses one game the rest of the season in conference play, they would win a tiebreaker over North Carolina. So this is a key game. I don't want to discount this, but also consider that the Coastal Division typically beats up on itself, meaning that the winner of the division is typically no better than 6-2. There hasn't been a team with less than 2 losses in conference play win the Coastal Division for, oh my goodness, 10 years.
Okay, Mark, I appreciate your time and appreciate everything you do. Go Ducks.
Hey, I appreciate it. Thanks, Eric. Have a good night. Yeah, the Coastal Division. Maybe this is just another Coastal Division season where there's not going to be an elite team, and the division winner is going to be 5-3. We've seen that 5-3, 6-2 is pretty much the level of division championship there in the Coastal Division. Miami did go 7-1 the year of 2017, even though they lost 3 games that year. All right, folks, welcome to the Voice of College Football. That's been tough to come out of my mouth for some reason tonight. Welcome to the Voice of College Football. Who's on the line?
Hey, Mark, it's Tyler Campbell. How are you, bud?
I'm doing well. How are you, Tyler?
I'm feeling pretty good. Mark, let's just get this out of the way, okay?
Okay.
Let's get it out of the way. When I called you over a month ago, we talked about Fuente.
Yes.
My goal was not to convince you Fuente's the guy. My goal was to get you to where I am, in which there's not enough evidence to state if he is the guy or is not the guy. I said on your air that, you know, Tech's defense was going to look. Take Tech's defense from last year and throw it away. Throw it away. It doesn't matter what Tech did last year on defense. Throw it away. And I went to the game tonight. I finally got my voice back. And Mark, well, let me say another thing, okay? You know, when you're doing these phone calls, you know, you're a cool guy. Sometimes you're a bit abrasive, but like you're a guy, you know what you're talking about. And trust me, as a guy who studied engineering and worked in some pretty profile engineering positions, like when you're somebody who knows what they're talking about, it's easy for people to just think you're abrasive or a little bit punch back. But, you know, Mark, when your 24-hour stream the other day, last night, I watched about 18 hours of it. I had to go to sleep myself. But Mark, brother, let me tell you this, man. To see you just chillax, hanging out, scrambling eggs, doing jumping jacks. Mark, my man, you're an all right dude. You're all right. Like, to see that side of you, Mark, it changed my perspective on you. Like, I always have respect regards to your knowledge. I mean, obviously, you've been in this, you've covered this game. Like, Mark, you love college football. it shows. And you've made that decision to walk away from a pretty comfortable. It's obviously a lot of work, but like you're talking about consistent pay, health care insurance, all that stuff. You walked away from that to do your own thing. I did that when I left NASA to start my own thing. And I appreciate your love for the sport, but really that 24-hour stream for those who are there, to see a new side of you, to see a guy who's just chillaxed, hanging out, making eggs, doing jumping jacks, watching you nod on and off. It's a new perspective for you, Mark, and for me at least. And I always respected you as an analyst, but when it comes to on a person-to-person level, you're an all right dude, Mark. You're good. You're good. I appreciate you for that.
Well, I appreciate that.
Said,
it's leading me to say something, but I will save it for after the phone call or at the end of the phone call. So thank you so much for that. That's very nice.
Absolutely. So I went to my family's had season tickets to Tech games for like 22 years now. And when I call you, Mark, I'm not watching chat. I step outside the house. I don't know what chat says, but Mark, for me personally, college football is a big deal. It means a lot for my family. Me growing up, don't get it wrong. Like I grew up in a great household. I never wanted for nothing. Like life was good. But again, this is, I'm opening up a bit here to showcase my love of this game. My dad's great. He supported me in all the things I've done. He's been a great just father, but he's like emotionally distant. It's hard to connect with him. And it's only during those Virginia Tech home games that I get to see my dad be emotional. And I'm trying not to get emotional myself, but Mark, thank God college football is back. I'm sure I'm not the only one who can attest to how important those games are with your family, to spend time with them in a new environment, or not. It's not new because you go there year after year, but to spend time with them in a different environment where the pressure's off. You're just there to have fun. And the game of college football means so much for me. Like not only like does Virginia Tech matter to me, I'm an alumni, I'm a student leader. Like Virginia Tech means a lot to me, but on a family level, like Mark, just thank God, like college football is back. And tonight was a great game. I'm sure as a fan, I don't know if you watched the game all that much, but I'm sure for somebody who was watching the game, it was a good game. But for someone that was there, I really do believe the home crowd made a difference. Again, we've had season tickets for 22 years now. I've been to easily 100 and do the math, 130, 35 home games, not to mention the away games, not to mention the bowl games. I have never seen a Tech crowd that was screaming their hearts out every single play. Like I'm used to the crowd being wide open in the first quarter. You kind of settle down the second and third. You get third down. That's when you start to be wide open. And then depending how the game goes, when you're deep in the fourth quarter, the crowd becomes more alive. Mark, as someone who was there at the game, it didn't matter if it was fourth down or first down. That crowd was wide open. And I don't know how many people who are listening right now or comment. Again, I don't watch your stream when I talk to you who are Tech fans, but as somebody who's been to a whole lot of college football, the crowd made a big difference. it was loud. First down, second down didn't matter. And again, it just brings me back to thank God, Mark, like college football's back. Like it's easy to take things for granted when it's there every year, but when the COVID thing kind of took that off the board, I think a lot of people like myself and the hundreds of thousands of people, if not millions, that count on the football season in terms of bringing people together and hospitality, traditions and cultures, and this family. Like, thank God it's back. With that being said, though, when we talked on the phone, I told the chat, take the under, take Tech to cover, and take Tech to straight up win. With that being said, the defense played lights out. I cannot tell you the last time as a Tech fan that I get to say Tech defense won us the football game. Like, straight up won the game. And that's just, that's incredible. You're talking about Justin Hamilton, who it's his first coordinator position. His first year didn't go coordinator playing due to COVID, but to go into year two as a brand new defensive coordinator for the first time in your career, to go big the guy like is it Falongo for UNC? He's been doing it for 20 plus years. Like, Justin Hamilton is legit. UNC got the ball a lot in the third and fourth quarter, and as a fan, I'm sitting there going like, I can't. I'm just waiting, Mark. I'm waiting for Sam Howell to throw that deep ball. I'm waiting for those quick 7 points, and the Tech defense just wouldn't allow it. And that's what happens when COVID doesn't remove all your players. That's what happens when you have your best 11 on the field and you have an off season. But Mark, I do have my concerns though, because I sat in the south end zone. So what that allows me to do is see the entire width of the field. What I saw, Mark, was the commitment to keep Braxton Burmeister healthy. Mark, there were so many times on the RPO that the UNC defensive end committed. He committed to the rush. I mean, I can't count on my fingers and toes how many times the backside DN committed and Braxton just handed the ball off. He didn't do that last year. He was pretty successful in the RPO, but it alarmed me in the sense that, this game should have been a blowout in Tech's favorite, but they just refused to run Braxton, and that was a concern to me. But that being said, I don't know if I really have a question. I'm curious if you watched the game at all, but if there's any UNC people watching, like, guys, you're fine. You're fine. Like, I cannot tell you how many times I've watched my Hokies drop games. Like, we get called chokies around here. You don't earn that title. It's like Clemsoning. Clemsoning, like, when you get chokies, when you get Clemsoning, that's not by accident. That's by design. But UNC will be fine. I think you guys will have a great season. I have no doubt you'll win 10 plus games. You went on a tough away game. That's hard place to play. But at the end of the day, though, when it comes to Coach Fuente, he's now 5-1 against UNC. If it wasn't for COVID, he'd be 6-0. I'm not saying Fuente is the guy still. He has a lot to do to earn that kind of expectation of you're the guy. But I can't say he's not the guy. He's still on that ladder for me. So, really, I'm calling in to kind of share you my perspective from somebody who's at the game, what I saw. UNC's pass protection is still suspect. Your defense is soft. UNC defense is just flat out soft. And I don't know how you can coach grit. I don't know how you coach players to be tough. I stepped aside a UNC guy, and he was cool. But I made a joke saying, I don't know if I'm playing you guys or UVA. Like, you guys are just soft on defense. So I don't know. Like, UNC's defense was supposed to take a big step forward. You didn't show it tonight. Yeah, you kept Tech to 17 points, but that's because Tech kept themselves to 17 points, not because you guys did. But I really think you guys will have a good year. This is just the point of when Dabo Sweeney, don't forget the Orange Bowl when they got trounced by West Virginia. Mark, like, I'm sure you watched it. It's part of the growing pains of being a successful program. And I think UNC guys will be fine. But I'm just curious, Mark, if again, I'm just sharing my perspective to your chat, to yourself, as somebody who watched the game, things I saw, things that concern me. Tech's offense has got to, Brian Cornelius's got to go. If Fuente really wants to take this offense to the next level, you got to get rid of Brian Cornelius. He's just not the guy. I just don't have faith in Brian Cornelius at all, period, flat out.
The calls are lining up at this point, so we've had a good take on Virginia Tech, so I appreciate the call. Right. And
but Mark, did you happen to watch the game at all?
If there's a night like tonight, if there's a night like tonight, especially early in the season when it's a Thursday or Friday night and there's only basically 2 big games, I'm watching every play of every game. I set out to watch every play of Virginia Tech, North Carolina, and every play of Northwestern and Michigan State, at least until it didn't matter anymore. So I watched every play of the game.
And again, I just got home, and as soon as I got home, I called your number. So I'm just curious. You probably already talked about this. Just what were the quick things you saw? What did you see?
Yeah, I basically covered this off the top. Is that number one? I thought Sam Howell did not play well, but he's getting the blame, of course, because he's the guy that everybody knows. So he's getting the blame from everyone, and that's ridiculous because he didn't have a chance in this game. I was surprised that with 5 starters coming back along the offensive line, that North Carolina, the pass blocking was atrocious. This was one concern I had going into the game and into the season for North Carolina, is that they lost those 2 just ridiculous monsters at running back, Williams and Carter. And I know that they were replacing them. I got my read into that running back position and room during the spring game, watching the North Carolina spring game, that they're replacing those 2 monsters with like serviceable guys. And I think that showed. The wide receivers didn't do anything egregiously wrong, like just flat out drop passes, but they didn't make plays on the ball like the previous core of wide receivers. They didn't gain separation. They didn't outfight the DBs for the football. The tight end dropped 2 obvious passes that I remember. On the Virginia Tech side, what I thought was impressive is that some of the things that were not impressive about North Carolina, that they had constant pressure on Sam Howell, that they played with great tenacity and great energy. I don't know if they're going to carry that into noon games against Duke and Georgia Tech. We'll see. But they had it tonight. They obviously, again, put tremendous pressure on Howell. They controlled, I don't want to say dominated, but you could say they dominated the line of scrimmage against the veteran offensive line. Their DBs made plays on the ball. They broke up passes consistently. They were harassing the wide receivers. They were in their back pocket constantly. I thought that the offense ran very smoothly and was very aggressive, like in a controlled manner in the first half. And I thought that they took their foot off the gas and it almost cost them. But I'll let you go right now. I got to move on to these other calls, but I appreciate so much the kind words and the call.
Absolutely, Mark. You're doing a great job, brother. I can't wait for the season. I can't wait to feature calls with you. And again, that 24-hour stream was awesome. It showed a new side of you to your fan base. That's really well appreciated and really well respected. Keep up the good work, man, and I'll talk to you next time, brother.
I'm going to let you go, and I'm going to make one statement in response to that, but thank you so much. So what I will say about my approach to all this is that you got to understand that I grew up a long, long time ago, and I always wanted to be a sportscaster. And I went to school to either be a sportscaster or a sports writer. And then I decided late in my college career to be a sportscaster. So I grew up as a traditional sportscaster. So my approach on YouTube is just, I'm not trying to be a sportscaster. I'm not, like, I've had a few people, not very many over the course of like 10 years, but a couple people say you're trying to be a sportscaster. Well, no, this is me. So I take an analytical, I take a very professional approach, and yeah, I'm a real guy. I'm an emotional person, believe it or not. In my private life, I'm probably somewhat different than what you see here, but I'm still being true to myself here. This is just how I grew up, and how I trained was to be a sportscaster. So that's kind of how I know that I approach this more formally. And that's not because I don't want us to be comfortable, because I do. I want everybody to be. It was my intent when I started this. One of my main intents was I want people to respect me. So I want them to respect my knowledge and my experience. But I don't want to be perceived as somebody who, I'm way up here and everybody's down here and listen to me. No, I wanted it to be a conversation. I wanted to be respected, but I also wanted to be accessible and people to know they can talk to me. They can talk to me anytime. They can contact me, all those things. And there's a few of you who know that a little bit more so than others, because you've reached out and then you've called me and that sort of thing. So that's been my approach to all this. But that's just how, again, I train to be a sportscaster. Therefore, that's just kind of in me. All right, back to the football here, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Hey, Mark, this is Chris from California. How are you, buddy?
Hey, Chris, I'm doing well. What's going on tonight out there in California?
Just taking it easy. Watched some ball today. I had the under in the Michigan State game, and I lost on that last Northwestern touchdown.
Oh yeah, that's what happens to all of us.
Tough one. I gotta say that last caller was riveting. And they did 5 minutes telling you how much he loved you, and then really got into his history at NASA. I was way into that. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I like to let people talk. I'll typically cut them off when one of a few things happens. Either they stop talking about football and it's very boring, or they start to repeat themselves, because a lot of people do that. And there's nothing wrong with that if you're talking to your buddy in the living room. But once people start repeating the same things over and over, then I'll say, whoa, okay, we've heard this before. We got your point. Let's move on. But I let people talk on here, and it's a good thing, but it's also not a good thing, because people credit me for it and they enjoy it on one hand, and they like it and say, I like that you let people talk. But at the same time, if people aren't enjoying the caller, then it's not necessarily a good thing. So what's going on tonight?
Maybe nothing, man. I gotta say, this is what I hate about ESPN and their kind of I don't know what to call it, but there's a way they just kind of kind speak every team. Like everyone was talking up North Carolina, like will they challenge Clemson this year, or they're going to win their division and go to championship. What evidence was there ever that North Carolina was going to be any sort of a contender?
Well, what they delivered last year would be part of that. When you say contender for the ACC, right?
Yeah. I mean, they're talking about them like, is this North Carolina's year? Yeah, honestly, I would have said 9-3 at best, which is fine, but that's honestly the best. Or 8-4 at the worst. After tonight, they might go 6-6.
Well, I'll use the term, let's tap the brakes a little bit, because let's not overreact to one game. But yeah, they did lose it to a team that if they're going to be a contender. If they're going to win the ACC championship, that's probably not the team you lose to. But at the same time, we've seen other teams lose when they've been a top 5 to 10 team in the nation. We saw Georgia 2 years ago finish in the top 5 or 6 in the nation and lose to a 4-8 South Carolina team. We've seen Ohio State finish in the top 5 in the nation, lose to Purdue or Iowa. And we can go on and on and on. We saw Clemson win a national championship and lose to a 7-5 Pitt team and lose to a 4-8 Syracuse team and still go to the playoff and win the ACC. So I can keep going with those examples. So they're out there. We saw Oklahoma win the Big 12 and finish in the top 6 or 7 last year, and they lost to a 4-6 Kansas State team.
All true, but I think, I don't know, North Carolina, they had 7 points. And, I mean, I get your point. I just hate hype. I hate hype that's not deserved. In my opinion, you got to have a few good years. I'm the same way about Texas A&M. They're going to be fine this year, I think. I don't think they're going to beat them, and I don't think that they're going to go 10-2. I think 9-3 is the ceiling. I don't know. Every team's got to be consistent. You have one good year. It's like Minnesota was great 2 years ago. Last year they sucked. Maybe they're good again. They looked good the other night against Ohio State, but a lot of these teams they catch kind of not even magic. They just have a good season, and all of a sudden next season it's this team is the contender. Same with Northwestern. Northwestern sucked. I mean, they had a great year last year. They had a great year for Northwestern last year, but I don't know. I just I get tired of all the false hype. Actually, last thing I'll leave you with. I'm a Georgia fan, and I know you're picking them to win tomorrow. Is there any chance that Clemson just comes out and then can just open up the run game? Which I'm thinking, I'm really hoping that they can. They have to pass the ball, but you think there's any chance that they just come out and all of a sudden they can run the ball again like 2 years ago?
If Clemson can run the ball against Georgia, then it's going to be a long, long night. Then it could turn into 38-17. With Clemson's offensive line being its worst unit, we think its worst unit, and Georgia's talent in the front 7 just being ridiculous, like waves and waves of 5 stars, as you well know. I expect Georgia's front 7 on defense to be as good as any in the country. So if Clemson can run the ball with 2 freshman running backs, well, they are going to start Lynn J. Dixon. He's going to be the guy that's going to get the reps early. I expect it to be maybe similar to what we saw with Ohio State and Master Teague. Master Teague's the reliable guy. He's the veteran. He gets the carries early, and then they try to see what can Moffa and Shipley do as the more dynamic, high-ceiling guys later, like the Buckeyes did last night. But if Clemson can run the ball, Georgia's not winning this game. But I don't think Clemson will run the ball. Clemson couldn't run the ball last year with Travis Etienne as a top-notch running back against marginal teams, against not even good teams. And they had the running threat of a quarterback in Trevor Lawrence, who was much more of a running threat than Uiagalelei is now.
Is that right? I thought he was all right. I didn't really. I watched the Notre Dame game. I didn't watch that Boston College. I was keeping up with it just to score. But is he? I thought he was more of a dual threat. But maybe not. Maybe.
Oh, he's a dual threat. He's capable of running. Yeah, but he's not the runner that Trevor Lawrence is. At least he hasn't shown it, and everybody's saying, everybody that knows something about it, meaning even Dabo, says he's not that runner.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Well,
but they're not on completely different planes. It's not like Trevor Lawrence is Michael Vick and this guy's Drew Bledsoe. He's a statue. He's mobile, but Trevor Lawrence is considered to be a better runner.
Gotcha. All right. Well, that actually makes me feel better. All right. Well, I'll tell you what. I'll leave the phone lines clear. Just do me a favor. Who's your favorite? If you were going to bet tomorrow, what's your best bet?
Well, I try to reserve these things because we've got a Patreon where they throw in the $5 a month for my picks. But so you're basically, I'll throw one out there. What are you looking for? Like a pick of the week?
I'll tell you
What do you want? A lock of the week? Something like that?
Give me a lock. Come on. Tell me a lock. I'll tell you my favorite bet is Ole Miss at 9.5.
You stole mine. That I was going to say, can I go to Monday night? Especially if it's down to 9.5. I thought it was at 10. I think Ole Miss is going to win this game. They're going to win this game 45-24.
Love it. All right, I'm already in there. I already put the bet in today.
There you go. I will be surprised if Ole Miss does not cover. Yep. Thanks for the call, man.
Yeah, see you later, Mark.
All right, let's keep rolling here at the Voice of College Football. Who's on the line?
Hey, what's up, Mark?
Not too much. Who am I talking to?
Jeremiah.
How are you?
I'm doing good. I heard earlier you kind of being kind of savage against Texas earlier, and you said Bijan's not going to win a championship or something. But
No. I did not say he was not going to win a championship. The caller said, I wonder if he wasted his selection of schools or his scholarship by going to Texas. And then I said, well, it depends on what his aspirations are or whatever his goals are, because even if he doesn't win any championships at Texas, then he's still preparing himself for the NFL. I'm not making that claim on Texas football. I don't think they're going to win the Big 12 this year, but I'll make my evaluation of this season's games and then move on to next season and evaluate if I think they can win the Big 12 next year. No, I'm certainly not saying like Texas is not going to win a championship.
Yeah, I was like, I don't think they're going to win it this year either, but they can make a run. I don't think they might be in a championship. I'm not as high as Iowa State, especially after the North Carolina performance. Because everyone said they were their experienced team. They brought back all their own linemen. I mean, there's a lot of parallels between that Iowa State and this Louisiana game this weekend. They're the experienced team, but I mean, as you can see, Virginia Tech. I mean, I don't know anybody on that team, but they could be more talented. I don't know, and they just beat experience. But I don't know what your take is on that.
I'm sorry, sir. Did I miss something in there? What are you looking for?
Oh, I was like, is talent versus experience. I'm thinking that after we saw that North Carolina performance, I think we saw that experience isn't everything, and that Iowa State may not achieve that pinnacle that everyone's expecting. As they also expected the same thing from North Carolina, from Sam Howell coming back, being a Heisman projection, having a returning O-line, and you saw his O-line struggle. But this is time with the Big 12 championship with Iowa State and all that. And I think you picked them to make you had them like fifth or sixth place. But yeah, that's all.
Where did I have Texas? I had them going 6-3 in the conference.
Oh no! I'm talking about Iowa State.
Oh, Iowa State 7-2. They go to the Big 12 championship game.
Yeah, I think you have them, but I think you have them winning it, right? And
winning the Big 12 championship game. I took a shot at that. I think Oklahoma's a better team, but in a one-game scenario, I'm taking a shot with Iowa State and all those seniors on offense with a small window of opportunity here to do something special.
All right. Well, I think that's it. So yeah. All right. I'll be watching.
Good stuff. Well, thank you for the call. Next up, here, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Hey, Mark. It's Sam from the left coast.
Sam, what's going on?
I had a few comments. I just wanted to fire away, and then I had a bunch of questions for you.
Okay.
But first of all, I wanted to say that 24-hour stream was suicidal. You look great after the fact.
Well, thank you. I didn't look great the entire time through it. I know that. But I appreciate it.
Couple of quick missiles. I think Ohio State does look vulnerable, but I don't think Oregon is still in the same league. It's going to take a lot of breaks. Number two, I wanted to say that Sam Howell looks like a great quarterback, except he has no touch to his throw. That's the biggest glaring thing I saw. Number three, quick, I wanted to say that Clemson needs to lose for college football this year. I think that Georgia, they're not that great, I think, but if they can beat Clemson, they're doing college football a great favor.
Okay. I understand the first 2 points. I generally agree. I'm just curious about the Clemson comment and why that would be good for college football.
Well, I think ACC is kind of gotten a pass. You know, there's been a lot of hate toward the Pac conference, and I think ACC is really a weaker conference if you look at it in most metrics. I guess that's what I was trying to get into.
Okay. So you think it's bad for college football that the same team wins the same conference, and it's a bad conference in which they're not challenged and they get a kind of a free pass through the season and make the playoff?
Well, I think Clemson, this is like the ultimate kind of question to that, which is they have a garbage schedule. So if they lose to Georgia, I don't see how they can even be competitive for the playoffs. But the problem is, and this is the big problem, is that everybody knows Clemson's got a top 5 talent. So talent, reputation, this is why we need to go past the 4-team playoff.
I agree. And have been stating such
let me
for
a
time.
couple of questions for you, Mark,
sure,
if I can. Question number 1. Pac-10 is not getting the respect, I think. Number 1, what do you think about the Oregon State-Purdue game? Nobody talks about it. Nobody cares about it. I'm really psyched about it. What do you think about the Oregon State-Purdue game?
The only thing I've stated about that game in going through the schedule a few times is that, sure, there are better games in that time slot. I think they're playing at 4 Eastern, but that's an under-the-radar game for me as well. That's a game that I will DVR, and truth be known, I probably won't be able to get to it because I try to watch too much football and try to DVR too much. And there are other priorities, but I think that that's a game. When somebody asked me just a few callers ago, and I was going through the schedule, what games could possibly be upsets, just from again, like you stated, not too many people care about this game. From a strictly point spread standpoint, I would not be surprised if Oregon State is a touchdown underdog, goes to Purdue, and wins that game outright. Yeah, I'm interested in that game. I am, but I'm a college football nerd. I think Jonathan Smith's a really good coach. I thought a couple of years ago Jeff Brom was a really good football coach. The Purdue defense is supposed to be the best Purdue defense that we've seen since Jeff Brom's first year, who, of course, is a quarterback whisperer, offensive guru guy, but who had his best season actually when the defensive coordinator was still there and they played really good defense. And that's why they won a bowl game and went 7-6 that first year. And they've been pretty bad since. I think that's a very competitive game, very interesting game.
Here's my next question for you, Mark.
Hello?
Mark?
Yes, I'm here. Next question.
My next question. What do you think about the narrative that Washington Huskies no longer care about football? I'm hearing this a lot in the West Coast. I can't believe it. I think the Huskies really want to devote their efforts into being a serious college football player. What do you believe is? I mean, I really think Washington wants to be the best, but I'm not. I'm hearing this all the time. What do you think?
Well, based on perceiving Pac-12 football for a long, long time, I've been watching since the late 70s. Certainly the program had a down period there in the early to mid 2000s. But besides that, they've been an excellent top 15 level program almost that entire time. So it certainly looks like they care about football. They went after one of the top coaches in the nation to bring in Chris Peterson to run that program for a long time and went to a playoff, which rarely happens outside of the top 4 to 5 programs in the nation. So I've not heard anything. I would think that the only thing that would give us indication that the administration and the school itself and the powers that be do not care about football would be the way they spend or fail to spend money. That would be the only indication I would get, and I've not heard that. You
Okay, Mark, thank you.
You basically follow the money.
Thank you so much.
Yep. Thanks. Thank you.
My final question.
Yes.
My final question.
Yes.
I think Ohio State is vulnerable this year.
Okay.
And I would say the probability of that vulnerability is about 60%. What's your answer to that?
So when you say vulnerable, you mean vulnerable to lose a game, and so it's a 60% chance that they're going to lose to somebody?
No, like 60% vulnerability to not making the playoffs.
Oh. I believe Ohio State is by far the best team in the Big Ten, and most likely the best team in the Big Ten. The champion is going to go to the playoffs. So I would say, I bet that our friends at the FPI that devise these probabilities would actually agree with you. I would guess that their playoff probability is something in the 50% range, but I perceive it to be better than that. I picked them to lose one game this year, but still go to the playoff. They could lose to Oregon. They could lose to Indiana. They could lose to Penn State. I think that there are 3 legitimate teams out there that have a more than puncher's chance to beat them, a legitimate shot of beating them, like a 30% chance in that range. And
Mark, you're awesome. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Have a good one. And Ohio State will also have to play a Big Ten championship game against Wisconsin or Iowa, most likely, and have to face those teams again. So a 4th team that could beat them. But we've seen Ohio State, let's say, in the last 2 Big Ten championship games be challenged until the 4th quarter and then put down the hammer. Actually, in the last 3 Big Ten championship games. Welcome to the Voice of College Football. Who's on the line?
How you doing, Mark? I'm Luke. I'm from Arizona. How you doing?
How you doing tonight? I missed your name, unfortunately.
I'm Luke from Arizona. How are you?
It's kind of difficult to hear you. Anyway, what's going on?
Arizona.
How you doing tonight?
I'm not doing too bad. How are you?
I'm good. What's on your mind?
I wanted to talk about these under the radar games. And
Okay.
the game I'm looking at is Rutgers and Temple.
Yeah.
That's the game I'm looking at. Do you think the Scarlet Knights could kind of surprise some people this year?
So my first question about that game is, of course, it was supposed to be played at 6:30 on Thursday. So did they schedule that for noon?
Yeah. It's 9 a.m. here in Arizona.
Okay, so they're playing at noon. And did they move the game, do you know, to Temple?
Still showing that's in Rutgers for me.
Okay, so they're still
Not
playing at
sure.
Rutgers. They just had to move the game. Okay, I see it right here. Temple at Rutgers, Big Ten Network, noon Eastern. I think that Greg Schiano is an excellent coach. I think he showed us that last year because he took basically the same personnel. He did grab a lot of transfer portal additions from around the Big Ten last year and add to his team. But they went from being by far the worst. They were worse than Kansas. They were losing 45, 50 points every game, 21 consecutive losses in the Big Ten, and he made them competitive last year. They won 3 games, 3-6, and only lost by roughly 1 score to 10 points in those other games that they lost. So I have a lot of faith in Greg Schiano. I got to admit, I don't know a whole lot about Rutgers. I know that their quarterback left to be the backup quarterback at Michigan State, Anthony Russo. And of course, Temple's been under guys like Matt Rule and Jeff Collins has been a very strong program, but they had an off year last year. And I think they're a bit down right now. So I expect Rutgers to win that game.
Kind of another question I had. Do you think if like Coastal Carolina and UCF, kind of like those teams that did really good last year, if they replicate what they did last year, do you think they'd get any respect in the rankings for the playoffs?
Did you say Coastal Carolina?
Yeah, Coastal Carolina, UCF, Cincinnati, kind of those group of 5 teams that did really good last year.
Are they going to get respect this year?
Yeah, because like Cincinnati last year, they were undefeated, and
Sure.
they didn't. And one of their games got canceled, I think, and they moved down in the rankings, even though they didn't play.
Well, unfortunately,
unfortunately
for Cincinnati last year, they couldn't play any teams outside the conference. So we're back to non-conference games. And as you well know, they have 2 very important ones against Indiana and Notre Dame back-to-back with a bye week in between on the road. And I think Cincinnati should gain a ton of respect, even if they don't win those games. If they can win one of those games and play well in the other, and Indiana and Notre Dame turn out to be the teams that we expect them to be, roughly 9-3 type teams, that Cincinnati should gain a lot of respect. I already respect Cincinnati. They should have beaten Georgia in the Peach Bowl. They played better than Georgia most of the game. They have played. They play a difficult schedule in the American Conference. The American Conference, it could be argued, is nearly as good as the ACC if you take Clemson out of the mix, which of course you can't. But now Coastal Carolina, we haven't really seen them play that measuring stick game outside the conference against a legit opponent, unfortunately. Not that I don't think they're good, but their most difficult games have been against Louisiana and Liberty and those kind of, they beat BYU last year, but they haven't played a Power 5 team since they've emerged to be a good team. And I don't know that they play that game this year. They play Kansas outside the conference, and I think that's their only Power 5 game. Now, we saw an interesting game, obviously, last night with UCF coming back down by 21 points to beat Boise State, and UCF's got they've got Louisville on the schedule, and I thought they had somebody else. Maybe it was just Boise State and Louisville. And with UCF playing a difficult American Conference schedule, I think that they would gain quite a bit of respect from getting through those games.
Kind of the last thing before I let you go, I wanted to get your thoughts on South Dakota State beating Colorado State, and maybe this is the year the Jackrabbits can take home that first FCS championship.
Yeah, I saw that score. They obviously outplayed that by quite a bit. I know that Colorado State has not been a strong team, though, the last few years. So I don't really know how substantial that game is, that outcome.
Well, that was all I had to ask you. Thanks for taking the call. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate it, too. Have a good night.
You too.
All right, let's take the last two calls of the night here. We got two people on the line. We actually probably have more. The way we've got the phone system set up is that I have a caller on with me and then two other calls in queue. So the system can take three calls at once. And so there might be, actually, I'm seeing right now, yeah, we got three calls in queue. So we can see three calls at a time. And so there might be other people calling that I'm not aware of. So please, if you haven't gotten through, I appreciate you making the effort. But let's take these three calls. It is 1:51 in the morning, and we have a long day of college football tomorrow. So in addition to me doing all the shows and everything I do here, I am playing air traffic controller for 16 post-game shows this weekend. So I've got to keep all that straight and get people in the right direction and doing the right thing for all our team channels. So lock in on these post-game shows that we got available for you. I believe the first one will be after the Penn State-Wisconsin game. That's a noon game, and also Oklahoma and Tulane, of course, on the OU channel. Welcome to the Voice of College Football. Who's on the line?
Hey, Mark, I'll keep this short. It's DeAndre.
Hey, man.
One was the Northwestern Michigan.
Yes.
Hey, one thing was Northwestern and Michigan State. I didn't get the chance to watch the game, but I listened to it. But that call was right. That I thought Michigan State was going to win because I didn't understand. Vegas, Northwestern lost a lot of talent. I know Michigan State had brought in a lot of transfers in, but to me, it takes Northwestern a while to build up, like, one or two cycles. And then they're like really good, and they might go down for a while. And, they lost their quarterback. Then the Carolina-Virginia Tech game, I was kind of disappointed in Carolina's offensive line. They let Howell get hit a lot. And, I thought the game plan was good by Virginia Tech, by them holding on to the ball. They didn't really put it up in the air for that good North Carolina secondary to get to it. And the development along the line of scrimmage for Carolina doesn't look good. Because that offensive line was supposed to have 9 starters. Not 9 starters, but 9 people that played in a lot of games that was supposed to help them win this year. So, but that's it, Mark. I'll let you get some rest. I know you're tired, so I'll let you go to the other two callers. I'll listen to it off air.
Thanks, DeAndre. I appreciate it, man. Have a good night.
Yep.
All right, next up on the Voice of College Football, who do we got? Hello? That didn't quite take. Hello, who's on the line?
I'm not sure if it's me or not. Is it me?
Hey, how you doing tonight?
Oh, how you doing? My name is Kelly.
Kelly, what's going on, man?
All right. I'm a huge Florida State fan, so I got two questions for you.
Yep.
All right. One, who you think will be the quarterback for Florida State, and why? And is there any way possible that we can beat Notre Dame this year?
All right. Question number one would be that when they signed Mackenzie Milton, I thought that was worth the risk. I thought that there was a huge risk that he was never going to be the same and never be the quarterback that he was in 2017 and 18. If they could get the Mackenzie Milton of 2017 and 18, then they would have one of the 10 best quarterbacks in the country, and they would be off and running, and they would be significantly improved. But it appears as though he's not ready. He's not back. I don't know if you catch our Florida State show every Wednesday night, but we do a Florida State show with our folks, Logan and Jason and James, and they know what's going on there in campus. And especially Logan gets a lot of intel and goes out to practice himself on a regular basis. And it just appears as though Mackenzie Milton is not physically up to taking the pounding that he would need. That's what it appears to be. We'll see starting Sunday night. So if Mackenzie Milton is 2017-18 Mackenzie Milton, there's no comparison between the two quarterbacks because I was not impressed with Jordan Travis last year as a passer, as a runner, as an athlete. He's phenomenal, but he is not a Florida State caliber passer from the pocket. Now, hopefully, now I'm basing that on last season. Hang on just a second. I would hope that they've worked with him considerably since then. So maybe he is now. I would think that Jordan Travis is going to be the starter tomorrow night or Sunday night.
Okay, Mark. My only thing about that is I feel like our fan base gives Mike Norvell a pass for last year with COVID. But when it comes to Jordan Travis, he doesn't get that pass. Because originally he wasn't going to be the starter. Originally the offense was going off James Blackman.
Okay.
Jordan Travis kind of got through in the fire. So I feel like people just kind of bash Travis, but he got put in a situation that he wasn't really ready for. And he had to you know what I mean? You know what I mean, what I'm saying, right?
That's a fair point. Sure. I am talking more about his mechanics as a thrower and his arm strength and ability to make throws downfield.
Yes,
but you're right. He was thrown into a situation with a new offense where the offense could not be installed correctly because of the pandemic. And he couldn't get to know his offensive coordinator and head coach and all of it. And on top of that, like you say, it was an offense that was designed for James Blackman, who's a very different player.
All right. My last question is about the Notre Dame game. Do you think there is any way possible that we can beat them Sunday?
Sure. I give you a pretty good shot. I'm not going to predict Florida State to win the game, but it wouldn't surprise me at all. I think you've got about a 30% chance of winning, which is pretty high when you think about it. Yeah, you're only a 7.5 point underdog. I think Vegas generally knows what it's doing when it puts those lines out there.
Okay. Thank you, Mark.
Sure. Thanks for the call.
Good night.
Next up and last up here, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Hey, how you doing, Mark? It's Studio One.
Hey, what's going on, man?
I'm doing all right. I just want to talk a little bit. I know it's late. I was just thinking this is going to be the most unpredictable year because of this COVID. Everybody's team is a little bit rusty and just not quite. It's a lot of mix and match parts, with all the some players leaving and 6-year seniors all over the place. You got some like it's the first time I've seen all these power teams with like new starting quarterbacks pretty much. You know what I mean? Like, so I was watching Ohio State and I said, this is a little bit what Alabama is gonna probably look like against my Miami Hurricanes. Just a little bit, but the only difference is they're not going to have that slow defense in Minnesota. I just know the Ohio State athlete was just a little bit too fast for them.
I think that if we went back and watched that game and we evaluated every play of the game and said, okay, who won this play? Even your ordinary plays, like Minnesota hands it off to Ibrahim and he runs for 7 yards. Well, 7 yards on a rush play, Minnesota wins that play. That Minnesota won more plays than Ohio State, but Ohio State won the huge plays. They had their 5 stars, basically, their 5 stars in Chris Olave, who was a 3-star, but of course he's a superstar now. Those guys made the game-changing plays. They made 5 or 6 plays that just blew the top off the defense. And of course, Zach Harrison on defense made a game-changing play with that strip sack, which I thought was pretty remarkable. He just blasted off the edge, had perfect timing on the hand swipe to knock the football out, and Haskell Garrett picks it up and runs for a touchdown. So they just have those players and that can do those sorts of things that overwhelmed Minnesota at times.
Yeah. You know what? Let me ask you a question with this power conference alignment stuff and all this. I was thinking about something. I said, you know what? If I was an executive for these group of 5s, I would basically, if I was the Mountain West, I was the MEAC, if I was the Sun Belt, if I was the Conference USA, all the group of 5,
yep.
I would form an alliance and say, you know what, we're going to crown our own national championship and we're going to get our own TV deal. I will watch that. I will want to see that. I actually did a mock of who would have won it. The previous, we did it that way, with Cincinnati, I think San Jose State, Boise State, UL. It was an 8-team playoff. Cincinnati and I think it was Ball State ended up getting into my mock final, and obviously I gave Cincinnati the win because of what they did. But who would have known? Man, that would be exciting. What do you think about the group from 5? Because they're getting left out. They pretty much getting left out of this.
So the way we're currently structured, you're completely right. That just think about what UCF did a few years ago. They went undefeated 2 consecutive regular seasons, 2017 and 18. And even after in 2017 that they beat Auburn, who went to the SEC championship game in the Peach Bowl, Auburn being the team that beat the 2 teams that played in the national championship game. And then UCF the next year turns around and is undefeated in the regular season again. And they only get as high as like 8th, which if you're going to measure between the top 4 spots and number 8, you're eons away because you're not going to climb past 4 teams. They've pretty much proven in 7 years that they are not going to take a group of 5 team to the playoffs. There's going to have to be some complete train wreck that's going to have to happen. Cincinnati's going to have to go undefeated this year and beat Notre Dame and Indiana, and there are going to have to be 2 lost teams out there winning conference championships for Cincinnati to make it, for example. So to your point, they've basically proven, the committee has proven that they're not going to select a group of 5 team. It's basically, I've said this, I don't know how long you've been watching me, but I've said this for years. To me, it's an insult to the group of 5 teams to tell them, you know what, we're considering you in theory, like we're teasing you by saying we evaluate you, we consider you, and we'll make you feel good by ranking you 11th and 14th and 19th, and we'll put you in our poll, in our rankings, but you're never going to make it because we've had 3 undefeated teams and they have not been chosen. So all I wanted the playoff committee to do, or the people that structure the playoff, is do one of 2 things. Either formally include the group of 5, come up with a playoff system where they are formally included. They have to be included, or say, you know what, we're going to play our playoff. You guys do whatever you want. because you're not going to be included anyway. Just be honest with them. And, you know, I've even said it to this degree, sir, where I've said, you know what the College Football Playoff Committee should be forced to do? They should be forced to go to every group of 5 school during fall camp while they're out there busting their tails in the 95-degree heat and throwing up and, you know, just sweating through blood, sweat, and tears through football practice day after day after day. And they should have to present in front of every team in the group of 5 and say, you know what, we appreciate your effort, but to make a long story short, you have no chance in hell of making the playoffs, but have a great season. We'll see you. You can win every game 50-0. You're not making the playoffs. Have a great season. Bye. So I would love to see that. I would love to see the group of 5 either be included, and I don't care if they lose 50-10 every game. We know that that's going to happen once in a while, but at the same time, we are going to see if they are included. We're going to see a group of 5, or if multiple teams out of the group of 5, if this turns out to be a 12-team playoff or a 16-team playoff, like a lot of people make. If we had multiple teams in the group of 5, yes, we're going to have Alabama beat Coastal Carolina 45-14, and people are going to grumble and say, yeah, they don't deserve to be here, whatever. But the first time that it happens, and it might take a year, it might take 5 years, that we're watching the first round of the playoffs, and it's like, wow, everybody's stoked and excited and hyped and going crazy, and Twitter's blowing up because Louisiana leads Ohio State 27-24 in the fourth quarter with 5 minutes left, and this is crazy, and can you believe it? It would be great for the sport.
That would be beautiful. That would be beautiful.
I totally agree with you.
Beautiful.
And would I watch the group of 5? Yes, I would watch every game.
I would too, brother. And last point I'm going to make, last point. I got a prediction. I predict Miami beats Alabama, then Florida beats them. They have 2 losses. Everybody's shocked and wondering. They run the table, go to the SEC championship, beat Florida, and then it's going to be who gets in? And I'm going to love to see how they sort that one out. Hey, man, y'all have a good night, and I'm going to take you out tomorrow, Mark.
Sir, it sounds like you're rooting for the same thing that I am every year. We want chaos. We want that committee to squirm and have to make a tough decision. Yes, I want chaos like that. Exactly. Have a good night, sir.
Yep, thank you.
All right, folks. People keep calling. Please don't call anymore. I'm going to take these last 2 calls because I don't want people waiting that have been waiting. Welcome to the Voice of College Football. Who's on the line?
Hunter from Alabama.
Hey, Hunter. What's going on?
Hey, good, man. How are you?
I'm good. What's on your mind?
Hey, so I just got off work. So I've been away from college football tonight with some of the games. Can you just give me a brief rundown of what happened in the North Carolina game and the Northwestern game?
Yeah, so basically what happened with Virginia Tech and North Carolina is that Virginia Tech's defense was all over North Carolina. I think North Carolina severely misses the 2 wide receivers that went to the NFL and those 2 ridiculous running backs. I could go through the names. I know the names, but at running back, they were complete beasts last year because they have serviceable running backs and they have wide receivers who basically lost every battle to Virginia Tech defensive backs. The Virginia Tech defensive backs were all over them. They didn't get any separation. They didn't make plays on the ball. They dropped a few passes, didn't drop a lot of passes. It was more about not making a play on the ball, not getting separation. Sam Howell was running for his life. I think he got sacked 6 times, and he was basically more so than the 6 sacks. He just had no time to throw, which was the surprise for me because North Carolina had its entire offensive line back, and Virginia Tech's defense just completely dominated the game. That said, Sam Howell still had them down in the red zone with about 30 seconds left, close to the red zone with 30 seconds left. to try to tie the game, but he threw a pick. And I still don't know whether it was third down or fourth down. If it was fourth down, then it's understandable. If it was third, because he was basically being sacked and he just like threw the ball up in the air. He just whipped the ball and it got picked off. But I think it was fourth down, so he just threw it in desperation, and that was the end of the game. Virginia Tech ran the ball really well. Their quarterback ran the ball really well. They came up with some very interesting plays. They did a lot of interesting things where they would roll the quarterback in one direction and leak out a back or a tight end to the other side and throw the ball across the field. And they created a lot of big plays like that, a lot of screens. They got a little too conservative in the second half because they had a 14-0 lead that was then 17-7. So they did get a little conservative and kind of shut it down on offense. But yeah, Virginia Tech won the game. Big game for them, obviously, and that's what happened there. And what other game?
The Northwestern game. I expected. That's what this was like. I thought that I bet on North Carolina to win. I thought that Mac Brown had that team ready to go. And so I guess that just they're a little bit behind what people's expectations were.
Yeah, in the Northwestern Michigan State game, Kenny Walker, he's a transfer running back from Wake Forest, had a ridiculous game tonight. I didn't see the final numbers, but he ran for like 240 yards. Northwestern, they basically lost their best players on defense from last year, their best offensive linemen, and it looks like they're going to have a down. It looks like they're going to have a down year. Their quarterback from Clemson, Hunter Johnson, he didn't play bad. It was almost like a Sam Howell type situation. He had no chance. And you know what the deal is with Northwestern. Even when they have their better teams, they just don't have explosive players on offense. Like it's just painful to watch them try to generate offense in these type of seasons. I think they're going to really struggle, especially on offense. Michigan State ran the ball down their throats, and they still had a shot at I'm trying to think what the score was in the second half. They still had a shot, but their field goal kicker missed a couple kicks. They would have been within one score, but Michigan State was just much better, more physical, faster, everything.
Okay. That kind of sums it up then. One more thing. How do you think this Alabama-Miami game shapes out tomorrow?
I think that Miami's a decent football team. I think they're a roughly top 15 to 20 team in the nation. I think Alabama is still the best team in the country. I think that their defense is going to be outstanding this year. I think that Nick Saban knows how to handle the situation with Bryce Young, that he's not going to be ultra conservative, but he's going to protect him from a play calling standpoint to get him into rhythm, to get him the kind of throws that he needs. And I think Alabama's going to slowly pull away. I don't think Alabama's certainly capable of coming out and blasting them 21-0 in the first quarter if Miami doesn't play well. But I expect Miami to play well, and I think it's going to be a close game for a half. And then I think I'm looking at Alabama winning that game like 42-17. I think it's going to be a good game for a half. Like it's going to be maybe 21-14 at half, and then it's going to slowly get out of hand sometime late in the third quarter into the fourth quarter.
Well, as a Bama fan, I'm really excited about Jake McClellan and what he brings to the table this year as a running back. I think he's a little bit underrated. I think he reminds me of to me, he's more of a kind of like a hybrid between like the speed of TJ Yeldon and like the physical ability of Mark Ingram. You know, how Mark could just plow through people. And, TJ had the speed. I think he's a little bit of a hybrid. And been hearing good things about Trey Sanders, being able to come back and play. So We'll see how his, development and recovery come. And, I think we have a real chance of repeating and winning another national championship this year. I think our defense is that good. And it's all just going to depend on this offense. And yeah, we lost a lot of players on the wide receiver positions, but when you add guys like Jamison Williams and somebody like JoJo Earl and Javon Baker, who Javon's been in the program for a year, so I don't think we're as big of a gap as at the wide receiver position as it seems.
I am with you. I have complete confidence in Saban, his staff, the system, the talent on the field. Are they going to pick up and run an offense at the same efficiency and explosiveness as they were at the tail end of last year? Maybe not, but that's one of the greatest in college football history. So they don't need to do that. They don't need to score 48 points average per day. 42 per game is going to be just fine. So, Hunter, I appreciate the call.
Appreciate it. I'm just going to say one more thing.
Yep.
Before this game kicks off tomorrow, I'm just going to go ahead and put in my prediction officially. Alabama wins the national championship this year. Probably I can see us ending up going up against Clemson or Georgia.
Okay.
I think Georgia's really good. I think Georgia's going to be really good. So I can potentially see an SEC, matchup this year. I think Oklahoma's good as well. So we'll see how it shapes out. But I think we do another repeat.
Sounds good. Thanks, Hunter. All right. Here we go out to 719. I believe that's in Colorado. Welcome to the Voice of College Football.
Yes,
Who's on the line?
Chris.
Hey,
Chris.
Chris. What's going on?
How are you?
I'm good.
Well, I was just listening to your show, and I like listening, and I like hearing the different things that people have to say, and I don't always agree with everything they say, but that's really not important. What I was curious about, I guess, was what do you think of the idea of like a Brigham Young? It doesn't have to be Brigham Young, but let's say Brigham Young. They're talking about maybe joining another conference. I know right now they're an independent, but how well would you think a team like Brigham Young? Do you think they would fit well within the Big 12?
Yes, I do. So I think it would be when the topic of realignment and expansion has come up, and BYU has been part of it, and I have thought about maybe bringing somebody else along with BYU that they can relate to in regards to that region of the country and what their history has been, whether that's Boise State is the first one that comes to mind that has that kind of cachet, that kind of power, that type of status that would be on the level of a BYU. But it doesn't look like that's going to happen. So you've got Houston and BYU, first and foremost, are being considered for the Big 12, and then I'm hearing Cincinnati and a UCF. I think that it would be a great thing for BYU, and it certainly would save the Big 12.
I guess the reason I was asking, I actually never went. I went to Colorado State when I was in college. So I know a little bit about Colorado State because I actually attended Colorado State, but I didn't really get the impression that Colorado State was they had a good team, but I wouldn't consider them necessarily to be a big football program.
Mm-hmm.
And they had Sonny Lubick. They had a good team. I mean, don't get me wrong, but I was a little surprised though, because I thought the last time they said they were going to add a team, I thought they said they were considering, among several others. I think Cincinnati was another one they were considering, but I think they said they were considering Colorado State, and I guess they aren't considering them now, which it doesn't really bother me, but I'm not exactly sure what changed between. It was several years ago. They were at 10, they were going to add 2, and I don't know who all they had submitted, but they didn't add anybody. What ended up happening, they just. So I was just wondering how well you thought these 4 teams might fit in with the conference. I guess they're kind of penciled in right now.
Well, I think they all bring something different. BYU is kind of a national program in a similar way that Notre Dame is, not to that degree, but I think that everyone across the nation recognizes BYU and its football history and its unique place in football history as being one of the forerunners of the modern game and the modern passing offense. Of course, and they've played a national schedule because, much like Notre Dame, they've had to as an independent, and they've done it successfully. And they and Notre Dame have been the only ones to do it successfully. So there's, as you well know, other independents out there like UMass and others who struggle and have to put together kind of a weak schedule, where BYU and Notre Dame, and again, I'm not putting BYU on Notre Dame's level, but to a certain degree have been successful in playing a national brand of football and having national exposure because of being a team that plays a variety of teams across the nation. Houston obviously is in one of the largest metropolitan areas in the country, so there's potential there, even though it's an NFL city, to gain that kind of exposure. And Houston, of course, has a history in the Southwest Conference of playing big boy football, for lack of a better term, against Arkansas and Texas in those schools when they were in the Southwest Conference. So that's been their history. So that would just elevate them back to that status. Cincinnati plays in a near major market, Cincinnati, of course, and would bring that. And of course, the program is committed, the institution's committed to playing and producing a quality championship level football team. So we've seen that over the last 4 or 5 years, and we've seen that actually for decades in different periods of time. I think UCF is the intriguing one because of the entertainment value and market size of Orlando. Number one. Number two, that obviously they care about football. They've made a great investment in a head coach here recently. Their last few teams have been extremely successful under Frost and Heupel. So they've shown, like Cincinnati recently, that they can win at a high level, compete against Power 5 programs and be successful. And that gets the Big 12 into Florida, makes a connection to all that talent from a recruiting standpoint. So I think they all bring a different slice of value.
Thanks. The other thing I guess I was going to just ask you about, I have my own opinion on it, and it's not necessary I tell you what it is, but, I'm actually not that big on an expanded playoff because I just don't think that's necessarily the right way to approach getting the right, I think there's many other ways we could try, I guess, to try to get the right two teams. I think it always boils down to two teams, regardless. You could have a expanded bracket, I guess, but I honestly don't think, like last year, for example, I honestly don't think it would have really done anybody any good to expand it beyond even 4 teams. I mean, that's just my opinion, but I guess if Cincinnati beaten Georgia, maybe there'd be a case for them. But, what were they, 8th? I mean, I guess we could expand to 8. Maybe that would be a good thing, but I really don't see the benefit of expanding much beyond that.
Okay. I do, just because I would like to see the conferences represented. I would like to see all the major conferences. I would actually like to see all the conferences represented. And I would think, based on our discussions, that would be something that you would champion, would be representing all the conferences. Why shouldn't all the conferences? We just have this odd situation of, we have this level of football, and I'm putting my hand at a high place. And then we have this level of football, and they play each other sometimes. And I'm, of course, talking about the Power 5 conferences and the Group of 5, but we treat them differently, and they do play at different levels, but there is a large overlap. The best Group of 5 teams are definitely better than the worst Power 5 teams. There's no doubt about that. So there's an overlap between the two. And so there's just this odd relationship between all these conferences and those two levels of football. And nobody has the governing power to do anything about it, to evaluate it and say, this is what's best for the sport. Let's put everybody together, put together a playoff system, or separate them and let them play 2 separate championships. One or the other would be good, would be fine with me. I just want to see a decision, a definitive decision to say this is the direction we're going. Not have this mishmash that really nobody knows what the group of 5 is and how they should be treated.
I actually did a little bit of research on it. What I determined, assuming I did it correctly, but there's a full degree separation between the two. In other words, it's like, I don't know how to compare it against each other, but in other words, they are separate in terms of the ability and the level to which they contend, I guess you could say. And it's 1 degree, just to show you what the difference is. FBS and FCS, it's a 10-to-1. In other words, it's 9-degree separation between FBS and the FCS as a whole. So we have 9 degree there, and we have 1 degree between, what would it be, the Power 5 and the G5. So they're a lot closer together, obviously, but a 1 degree separation is still pretty significant. So really they are playing at a lower, I guess you could say a lower level, but it's not significantly lower. So I don't know. I honestly don't know what the right course of action would be either. I guess expanding to 8 might help. I'm of the opinion that I think just a simple solution might be to move the playoff outside the bowls and let all the bowls play out, and then admit 4. So in other words, it would be like taking the playoffs and moving 4 teams outside the bowls, so they're not in the bowls. And then the other thing would be if there's an undefeated G5, admit them, and then any single loss P5, admit them. That's kind of the way I do it.
So not to interrupt you, but I just want to clarify a point that you just made. I just want to make sure I'm understanding this. So you would like all the bowl games to be played, and then we select the top 4, or to play the bowls and at the same time to play the playoffs with 4 separate teams like we do now, except not use the bowls.
They could do both. If they wanted to make it an 18 bracket, they could do it that way. But I'm just saying, let the bowls kind of pick who they want. And then after all the bowls are played, all the bowls, then you take the best Power 5 teams that haven't lost 2 games. And then you take any G5 team that hasn't lost any games. And there should only be about 3 or 4 total. So it actually works out pretty well. It's just like, it's like an elimination bracket for a double elimination bracket.
Okay.
4 teams.
So all the bowl games are played. All the bowl games are played in some kind of traditional way.
Well, however they choose to do it, that's the part it doesn't really matter to me how they pick their teams. Okay. And then you take the top 4. There really aren't that many teams after all the bowl games are played that have 1 loss. I mean, that's kind of a hard measure to live up to, honestly, after 13 or 14 games. You just take all the 1-loss Power 5 teams, if there are any, and then you take any undefeated G5. It might sound like there'd be a lot of teams, but honestly, you'll be lucky to get a field of 4. If you get 4 from that, you're lucky. And then you just put them in a bracket. And
we're going to have a different number of teams in the playoffs every year if that's the criteria.
Well, there might still need to be like a way to weed out the ones that you don't think might belong. But yeah, it works out pretty well. I mean, like, for example, 2014, it would have eliminated a lot of teams right off the bat. And then it would have just had Florida State would have got a second chance because they only had 1 loss. Then you'd have Ohio State and then Oregon and Texas Christian. It actually works out pretty well for the playoff. It would have eliminated any team that lost 2 games. That's just kind of how it's set up. It's like a double elimination thingy. You know what I mean? It eliminates any team that has 2 losses, and it admits any G5 that hasn't lost a game. So it would have admitted UCF in 2017. They would have advanced.
So if you're a 2-loss,
it would have worked. I mean, it would have worked.
Let's say you win the Big Ten championship. Let's say you win the Big Ten championship, and you are a 2-loss team, and you go to the Rose Bowl.
Yeah, you don't go.
And you beat somebody.
Yeah, you're out of luck.
You're just, that you're not going to the playoff. You know that you're just going to go to a bowl game and you're not going to the playoff.
Right. Yeah, you know that, obviously.
Okay. So what happens when we've got 5 1-loss teams? How do we play a playoff with 5 teams? Or 3.
To be honest with you.
Or 7.
Well, like I said, no, I know what you're saying. Actually, I don't know if there would ever be that many. that would be one loss. But if assuming there were, then you'd have to like probably use another way to get down to 4. But honestly, that really hasn't been that big of a. If you look back on past years, actually, what I'm proposing isn't really that far off the. I mean, there might be a case or two, or there might be a team or two that might get left out, but that would be kind of, more the exception, I guess.
Okay, I was misunderstanding. I thought.
I mean, it might sound like something. It might sound like no.
I thought you wanted.
It might sound like something that would.
I thought you were proposing every one-loss team to make the playoffs, but it doesn't sound like that. It sounds like they're going to be left out.
No, not every. Only the P5s. The G5s that have to be undefeated.
Okay,
you have to have an undefeated G5
okay.
to advance. In other words, it treats the two differently.
I would need to see an example of this written out to completely understand it, but it sounds interesting.
I'll do it
against it.
Yeah. I could do that for you if you want me to. I know how. It seems to work pretty well. The other thing about it is that I think it takes advantage of the fact that these teams, they're going to be in elimination brackets all the way through. And so I don't know that they could blame anybody else for losing other than themselves. But yeah, it would be like having it's kind of like the College World Series when the that team that loses twice is out. Except instead of having 8 teams, you have 4.
So it makes absolutely no difference if a team wins a championship or not in a conference. No. It doesn't matter. So you could have, let's say...
You mean like with
so you could say, for example...
Like Ohio State and Wisconsin?
So, for example...
No, I would have eliminated Ohio State. I would have eliminated Ohio State and advanced Wisconsin in 2017.
Yes, there you go.
Ohio State wouldn't have advanced.
So in 2017...
But they still got to play.
In 2017, Ohio State and Wisconsin... So I'm not saying this for your benefit, Chris, because you already know this. I'm saying this for everybody else's benefit. So Wisconsin wins their division in the Big Ten. They're undefeated in 2017. Ohio State's a 2-loss team and wins its division. They play for the conference championship. Ohio State beats Wisconsin, but Wisconsin still goes to the playoff and Ohio State goes home.
Well, they go to the Rose Bowl, but yeah. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, they go to the Rose Bowl. They do not play in the playoff. Which
they go to where the exact bowl they went to.
Well, but, then there's no reason for us to have conferences anymore. We might as well eliminate the conferences. There's no reason to have a conference if your conference championship is meaningless. The Rose Bowl, yeah, nobody cares about that.
They still get to go to the Rose Bowl. I'm not taking anything away from them. Well, no, they still get to go to the Rose Bowl. I mean, that's what they're playing for.
You were eliminating.
It's just that the playoff would have. Yeah, I'm eliminating Ohio State.
Yeah, conference championships.
I don't know that I'm eliminating them. But.
Your conference championships mean nothing toward the playoff. See, I can't agree with that.
They determine who goes. But they're not elimination games. In other words, Wisconsin still would have advanced, and Ohio State would have gone to the Rose Bowl. Yeah, well, that's exactly what it would have done.
Sure. I'm understanding
you can make up your own mind.
I'm understanding it. I'm just not agreeing with it, but I understand it. My issue with that is that we don't play enough non-conference games for us to make those kind of determinations. For example, we could have a conference where 2 undefeated teams or 1 undefeated team plays a 1-loss team in the conference championship game. Therefore, the conference championship game is meaningless because both teams have already made the playoff. So they're going to play that game and they're both going to make the playoff. Then we could have another conference where there are 1 and 2 loss teams in the conference championship game. Therefore, neither and no teams from that conference make the playoff. But let's say nobody outside that conference beat any of those teams. Their losses were inside the conference. I have an issue with conferences being left out just because the conference may be strong and they may be beating each other, but it's not been proven that anybody outside the conference can beat those teams.
Well, like I said, it prioritizes the P5 over the G5. G5 has to go undefeated, so I kind of tried to take it into account, and I'm not doing that to favor the G5. I'm doing it because G5 has an easier path if they go undefeated, it's not as tough to get there as it is for a P5. That's why I did it that way. That's why I made it double elimination for P5 and single elimination for G5. I tried to make it fair.
Very
like
interesting.
I said, I could show you how it would work.
Okay.
I'll show it to you, and then you can take a look at it and tell me if you like it or not.
Very nice. It's interesting. All right, Chris. Well, have a good night. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
You too. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Bye.
Our guy, Chris, crunches numbers, crunches scores, results, has a lot of tremendous ideas concerning the playoff and what that could look like. I have my playoff system, and but it certainly isn't necessarily the only one that could be fair. But I have certainly had a number of live streams and videos here where I presented my playoff system and my scheduling system. And that's for the off season. We'll do that in the off season. I'll be back at it. And for those of you who have not been around long enough to see my conference scheduling system and my non-conference scheduling system and my playoff system, we've got a long off season. Let's take advantage of the season. And we'll do that here at the Voice of College Football. So tomorrow, find your favorite team, find your channel. We will have post game for Florida, Texas A&M, Georgia, LSU, Oklahoma, Notre Dame over the weekend, Florida State, Miami, Michigan, Ohio State. Obviously, the Buckeyes played last night, and we had our post game on the Ohio State channel. Nebraska, Iowa. So please lock it in, and I will see all of you at some point tomorrow. The first thing that you're going to see here is Penn State, Wisconsin post game at the end of that game. That's a noon game, Eastern time. Game should be over about 3:30 in the afternoon. We will have post game of Penn State, Wisconsin right here at the Voice of College Football right here. And then again, pick your channel, go crazy. There's going to be post game all over the place. And I will be here throughout the day with both call-in shows and instant analysis on the big games right here at the Voice of College Football. Thank you, everyone, for your great support and for the great conversation. We will see you soon.